In this world, a king's ranking is based on their manpower, number of citizens, and most importantly, pure physical strength. Well, this guy doesn't really have any of that yet, but that won't stop him from trying to reach number 1. We start things off by meeting our main man Boji, crying on the lap of his mother, who is telling him that despite people picking on him, she knows he is strong and can make it through all the unpleasantries of life, then making him promise her that he will become the greatest king in the world. Cutting forward a few years, we see him making his way out of the castle to a point that overlooks his home, Bo's kingdom. There, he runs into this strange-looking dude known as Kage, who then immediately turns to robbing Boji upon seeing the crown on his head. Although, the robbery doesn't exactly go as planned, as Boji is actually deaf and can only speak by saying He can, however, read lips, and Kage can apparently understand Boji's way of talking, even though he doesn't exactly know how himself. Now that they're both on the same level, the robbery resumes and Kage steals Boji's clothes, as he doesn't have anything else of value on him. Boji then leaves, but agrees to return tomorrow with some more expensive clothes, as this is the first time he has been able to properly talk with someone the way he has been with Kage. He then makes his way home, walking through the town in only his underwear, to the shock and ridicule of all citizens that he passes by. Boji repeats the process of wearing expensive clothes, traveling to meet Kage, and walking back to his home in only underwear for a few days. Kage then begins to take a special interest in Boji, and secretly follows him as he walks back to the castle barely clothed. Kage sees how the people of the town mock him, and despite this, like a Chad, Boji has a big smile on his face. As he walks back into the castle, we're introduced to a fair few people. Queen Hilling, Boji's stepmother and mother to the second Prince Daida, Justice Minister Sandio, Swordmaster Domus, Spear of the King Apis, and Shield of the Queen Dorsh. His stepmother scolds him for walking around practically naked as Domus throws up gang signs, communicating with Boji what she's saying through sign language. Sandio then suggests that he might have been mugged by a highwayman, and the Queen orders Domus to go and find and kill them. Boji then begins to panic and insists that he was just playing by himself. The Queen then states that he has no place being heir to the throne, and her son should be the next in line instead, which she thinks Boji can't understand, as she tells Domus not to translate it, but the pained look on his face says otherwise. She then leaves, and Boji goes to his room to get dressed. Kage follows him in and sees the side of Boji that he's kept hidden, revealing that he does see the way everyone looks at him and it does bother him, but he pushes it aside and continues on. Afterwards, Boji goes to meet with his father in his room, where we see this absolute f***ing unit of a man, Bose, ranked as the number 7 king. We then get a flashback to when the kingdom was just a small town and on the verge of destruction by an army of monsters. Just when it was about to be overrun, Bose came out of nowhere, demolished the hordes, saving the town and founding this very kingdom. Back to the present, we see that the king in his age seems to be facing an illness, leaving him bedridden and close to death. And after calling Boji over, admits that despite how much he adores and loves him, he worries for the future of the kingdom once he's gone, before instructing Domus to train him even more rigorously than he already has. Once they make their way out onto the yard, we begin to see Domus's frustrations with teaching Boji, who barely has the strength to pick up a real sword. Just then, Boji's brother Daida comes out, stating that he'd like to spar with Boji for a bit. Domus, however, says nah, as he doesn't really think it would be a fair fight, so Daida instead wishes to spar with him. As the fighting begins, Domus becomes thrilled as Daida's swordsmanship is nothing like Boji's, and would be on the level fit for a future king. The fight ends with Daida losing, but ultimately impressing Domus. Boji, upon seeing how impressed Domus is, steps in and challenges Daida to a fight. Gossip about the match then begins to spread around the castle, and a crowd gathers to watch. As the fight begins, we get to see an unexpected side of Boji, as he seems to have every skill point invested in dexterity, easily dodging every single one of Daida's attacks, although he does have a 0 in strength, so his hits do close to nothing. As we see Kage watching the fight going down, he begins to think back on his past and how it's led him to here. When he was a child, there was a murder attempt on the king in the kingdom of Bo, the blame of which fell on the Shadow Clan, his family. This forced them to escape the city, although while doing so, many of them died. As him and his mother made their way outside the city walls, soldiers continued to pursue them. Seeing no other option, his mother tells him to continue on, into the toxic forest ahead, while she deals with the soldiers. He does manage to get away with the help of the Count's daughter, who helps him by hiding him inside her stuffed spider toy. His mother, though, gave her life while trying to buy him time. He then continues on to another kingdom, where due to hunger, he tries to barter a toy his mother gave him on his birthday for an apple, to which the store owner doesn't accept. He, however, tries to take the apple anyway, causing him to be beaten and losing his toy in the process. He is then taken in by this prick, who uses Kage to break break into places and steal large amounts of gold. Despite this abusive relationship though, it's the only home Kage has known since his mother died, and finds some comfort in it. Due to the increasing risk of being caught from the stealing though, the man sells out Kage for a small bag of gold to the guards. Kage, having no one else though, still follows him around, and in a bar, after starting a fight with another man, watches him get stabbed in the chest. Good. Kage's too good for you anyway. He then leaves the kingdom and spends some time going from place to place, until he ends up meeting Boji. Back to the present, we see the fight continuing on, with Kage rooting for Boji. The onlookers, however, begin to talk down this method of fighting, calling it cowardly. Domus then steps in, hand-signing something to Boji, causing a worried look on his face. When the fighting resumes, instead of dodging, Boji tries to block, causing the fight to turn from a stalemate into a one-sided victory for Daida, who brutally, without mercy, beats down on Boji. Upon seeing the fight turn, Kage is just about to race in and help him, when a spear from a piece lands down between the fighters, ending the match. Afterwards, Daida talks with his mentor, Beben, who reveals that Domus told Boji that the way he is fighting is not the swordsmanship of a king, and he must exchange blows. We then see Daida enter his room, and begin talking to a mirror on the wall, which states that everything is going according to plan. Sometime later, we see how badly Boji was damaged in the fight, as his entire body is practically covered in bandages. Domus then leaves the room, and Boji, thinking back on all the ridicule he's had to face, throws himself out of bed, crawling towards a nearby sword, which, despite all of his strength and effort, he just can't seem to lift. Kage then makes his presence known from under the bed, telling Boji how cool he thinks his method of fighting is, and how he should take pride in it. Boji then looks around for expensive clothes to give him, but Kage says he's not taking anything from him anymore, before stating that he knows this sounds out of the blue, but wants to solely be in his corner from now on, no matter what happens, causing Boji to burst into tears. Later that night, Kage admits that in his current state, he won't even be able to move around, so he'll come back tomorrow to check in on him. But as he goes to leave, a light appears under the door, when an unknown woman walks in, putting her hands out towards Boji, before emanating a green light, which begins to heal him from all of his wounds. Sometime later, as Kage begins to leave the castle, he is approached by Beben, who thinks that due to the Shadow Clan's heritage, he is here to assassinate someone, cornering him with snakes and then seemingly capturing him. We then cut to the next morning, and it's revealed that the King Bose has passed away in the night, leaving the family in tears. Before his passing, he did leave behind a will that states that Boji will be the next heir to the throne. Just then, smoke begins to rise out of his body, which forms into the shape of a devil. This devil then scans the room, before pointing directly at Boji. It then begins laughing to itself before vanishing. The next day, citizens gather around as the announcement of the new king is taking place, which is Daida, to the complete shock of Boji. We then cut to the previous night, where the queen is holding a meeting where she wants to veto the king's will, stating that she doesn't think Boji can serve as king, and after that demon arose out of King Bose's body, she doesn't think the will is valid. She then starts a vote, deciding which of them wish to keep Boji as king, in which only Sandio and Apis vote for him. The rest vote for Daida. Back to the present, Daida is crowned and Boji runs off crying, when a short time later, he is approached outside the castle by Beben, who asks him if he knows about the creature he found, which is Kage. Boji admits that he does, and Beben tells him that he has a message for him from Kage, that he is leaving on a journey, and will most likely never see him again, bringing this day for Boji from bad to worse. Wanting some answers, Boji runs back to the castle and into a secret cave system, in which he finds a giant two-headed snake known as Mitsumata, who seems to welcome him warmly. They inform him that Beben did capture Kage, but even though they have a debt to Boji, they can't sell out their master Beben, who they are also indebted to, but admits that Kage is perfectly safe and tasked with a very important mission. Elsewhere, Beben, under King Daida's orders, is tasked with killing those who did not vote for him in the meeting, and so confronts Apis. Except as this fight begins, he gets completely destroyed and seemingly eaten by the ground. Afterwards, Boji meets with the queen and tells her that he wants to go on a journey, which gets completely shut down by her as she doesn't think it's safe. Boji then runs off to his room crying and begins packing his things, as he's decided he's going on this journey no matter what anyone says. However, as he goes to leave, he is stopped by guards that have been placed outside his room. Seeing no other option, he ties his bedsheets together and begins to descend outside his window. The queen then comes into his room and is panicked upon seeing him trying to escape in such a dangerous way, getting the guards to pull him in. Boji, however, didn't exactly make the best knots, and they come loose, leaving him falling to the ground. The queen then jumps out of the window after him, home, only to be caught by the guard. On his way down, Boji hits his head and is knocked unconscious, with his bag luckily softening his fall. The queen then races down, and upon seeing his dead-looking body, flexes her clothes off, before being encased in a green type of energy, placing her hands out. And through much strain, she yet again heals him from his damages like she did a few nights ago. Later that night, while she is lying in bed, she reminisces on her history with Boji. When she first met him, she found out that he hasn't been open to anyone since his birth mother passed away. But after effortlessly trying, one day he was being bitten by a snake that looks suspiciously like a smaller version of the one he met with earlier, but is wounded. Trying to save him, she kicks it away, but Boji just wants to help it as it's hurt. She then heals the snake and he finally opens up to her. Eventually though, she becomes pregnant with Daida, and after his birth, her attention becomes more and more focused on him instead of Boji. Also, side note, the king is like the size of a f***ing house, and she is just a regular, normal-sized human. How exactly did any of that work? Anyway, upon thinking back at how much attention she hasn't been paying to Boji lately, she decides to let him go on a journey with Domus and this dude Hakuro, traveling to her family's home in order to deliver a message for her. He thanks her by giving her a kiss on the cheek. As they go to leave, the queen suddenly falls on the ground, and gets a bad feeling that she will never see Boji again, and Daida has something to do with it. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by hitting that like button. If we can get to 1,000 likes, I'll know you want to see it continued and I'll make a part 2.